Ms. Falls, will you call the roll, please?
Dr. Moriarty?
Here.
Mrs. Roberts?
I'm here.
Mrs. Powers?
Here.
Mrs. Russell?
Here.
Mrs. Pritchett?
Here. Hey, we have board information share. Anyone? Okay, public comment? Do we have any public comment? Kelly, just give that to Diane when you're done, your form that you filled out. Oh, I thought you had one with you, I'm sorry. All right, just fill one out. Thank you.
You can't hear me, sorry.
Gotcha.
Okay, sorry. About the naming rights issue, you are robbing Peter to pay Paul if you go through with this. You don't fund athletics already, and now you want to take that money that we, as your great volunteers, are out there running programs that, by the way, do bring students from out of county, which helps your FTE money, and take that away from us. What has been presented is so vague. You're paying someone, you don't even have to, he doesn't have to produce for you. You've already paid him. When this was first brought up, way back in October in a PTA meeting, we said very carefully to the superintendent and to Jen, work with your groups that raise money. We raise money on those fields. I've met with multiple board members this week. They had no idea what the sports budgets are. I would be very interested to know if you know what the budget for each sport is at each high school, because I doubt you do. The only things that are funded are the head coach and a little bit of field maintenance. We even pay for our own buses, and then this year, we have to pay for a separate car because our equipment is not allowed on the bus. So we have to fund all that. If you take away the naming rights, and if you read that contract, it's a very slippery slope. It is very, very vague as to where that money is going, and we've met with a lot of you, and I appreciate that you are listening to what we're saying, but you need to be very specific about what that's going to. And what happens when your scoreboard doesn't work? Because that happens a lot, and somebody's given you $50,000 for this. Who's gonna get out there and fix it? Because it doesn't happen quickly. There's a lot of details that need to be worked out through this, and you need to involve the booster clubs and the parents and those of us that raise the money for you. Because the way this has gone through, we specifically asked to be involved from the very start to work out a system that would work for everybody, and not one person reached out to us. And then it was pushed through at a board meeting quickly, and then all of a sudden we see all these proposals. They're going after our sponsors that already give us money, that give money to every school in this district. And now they're just gonna give money to the school district and not to each school. That's not gonna work that way. So I really, really hope that you will consider this very carefully about where this money is going, take out all this vagueness, make some very specific information. I honestly think you should get out of this contract, because if you go back and look at the numbers, they don't add up. The numbers that are listed there do not add up. I would encourage you to pull that contract and look very, very closely at it. But I have 14 days left in this district with a student here, and I thought I was done arguing with you guys on some of this stuff, but this is gonna hurt all of our athletics and most of our clubs if you let this go forward. So I hope you will really consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like G. Piggott. That's okay.
My name is Justin Pygott. I'm from Jensen Beach High School. I thought this was like an informal workshop, so I thought I'd be getting to talk to somebody one-on-one. Just really quickly, I do have a piece of paper here from 2015, and this could also have happened before 2015, where it discusses that group medical insurance, the school board will provide a flat amount not to exceed $6,500 annual insurance contribution. That's 2015, 2% per year. I'm a math person, did the math, which we haven't been getting those accumulations. 2% everywhere, right? And we know medicals cost more than that for everybody. But if you just did 2% per year, this next year, you would be providing $7,923.50. Okay, that just wanted to throw that out there. Second of all, me and my wife work here to employee family. You guys have been very gracious, and you've made some great contributions that have gone away this year, and it's going to affect a lot of our other teachers quite severely. The high deductible plan is not a choice for a lot of people. If you have one or multiple people in your family who happen to have medical issues, you have to get to $10,000 before anything even chips in. So it's a no-brainer. Not comparing apples to oranges, but Palm Beach County School District, and by the way, it has nothing to do with the money. I can show you the amounts later on. But just so you know, they contribute different amounts based on what the employee is doing. So 24 payments, and they offer like $300 if you're just an employee covering yourself, $450 if it's you and including and trying to help with your child, $400 and almost $500 if it's an employee and spouse, and for a family, $550 per pay amount. I'm not suggesting we're getting to that $13,000 contribution per person, but what I am just saying is consider that hitting varying amounts. We want to be a county that 100% supports teachers who have families, and everybody is getting priced out, and we don't want to be priced out. I love being here. We all want to be here, and I'm going to take a couple seconds to regain my thoughts and then finish it up. Again, I didn't think I was going to be speaking. And the awkward silence is one of my favorite things. I use it in the classroom all the time. Anyways, $8,000 and for, that's up $1,500, that's 2% per year. And again, 2015 was the last time it's been raised that we know of. It could be a lot more and a longer compound interest. We know how it affects our lives. You support us, and we want you to keep supporting us in a way that is meaningful for us families. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Chris Waller?
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Waller. I am a two high school parent here. I support both the football clubs and the cheer clubs at County and South Fork, as well as the FFA club. I agree with the sentiments that were already brought out about this advertising proposal for stadium naming rights. I do not believe this is a good deal for the county, and I especially do not agree that this is a good deal for our students. Currently, the vast majority of the funds that it takes to put teams on the field are provided by local sponsors and parents, and countless hours of volunteerism from those parents to make things happen. Everything include to prior to game maintenance, hanging signage, painting the logo in the center of the field, feeding the students. Parents produce about 2,700 meals per season for the football team. I'm not sure what the other teams do, but I know there are some similar activities there. When you are looking at an opportunity to gain some funds for the general budget that apparently, from what I've seen, does not do anything to support athletics or the athletic facilities, you are removing money and enthusiasm out of those programs that are solely rely on the folks in the community now. A few things I want to bring up. You guys published some advertising rules recently. A lot of responsibilities have been assigned here at the district level. I encourage you to appoint somebody at the school to do that. Otherwise, everybody that buys a banner at any school fence line is going to have to come here to the district to get approval on it. That seems a little ridiculous. This contract says that the district and school employees are responsible for lots of different things that don't happen today. So you're going to have to put an expense structure into place to carry this out. Things like painting logos on the field for the advertiser, logos on the track, the brandly new resurfaced track, I understand. Also, anytime there's an announcement about any event at the stadium, district and school employees are required to mention the sponsor, according to what I saw. I also am concerned about what an advertising program may be viewed as from students' NIL opportunities, which are yet completely undefined, and also for their amateur status for those that are going on to collegiate sports. So let's be real careful about that. They can't have a sponsor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any more public comment? Okay, I have a motion to approve, we're removing something from the, no, just, should I just tell you it's removed? Okay. Right. Okay. We have Laura Homedel with our food and nutrition services update.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Pritchett, board members, Superintendent Main. I'm Laura Homedel, Director of Food and Nutrition, and I have our registered dietitian, who I always say is the best in the country, Yvonne Potsko, and she is here to assist. So we're the Food and Nutrition Department. We don't necessarily report to what the school district reports to. We have a bunch of agencies that we have with the National School Breakfast Program and Lunch Program. We do the Department of Agriculture, that's our main department, Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, which is referred to as FDACS. And we also report to the Department of Defense, Department of Health, and the Department of Education for reporting. With all these agencies, it also means that we're audited by just about all of them, so it makes for some exciting paperwork in our office. In order to provide our students with high-quality meals, our program partners with a group purchasing operation for optimal pricing. We source locally grown products for our meals, and we have a fresh fruit and vegetable program in some of our schools. We provide outreach opportunities over the summer on our feeding bus, and we partner with chefs to provide unique menu options. And we utilize the latest technology for premium kitchen equipment. The Food and Nutrition Department is totally self-sufficient. We don't rely on the general fund to do our salaries. We pay a small fee to utilize electricity and the payroll services in the district. So some of our key performance indicators, we have approximately 180 employees. We have a little bit less than 800 pieces of equipment. Computers, we have 355, and special number of special menu accommodations, over 300. And some of those menu accommodations could be peanut allergy, or it could be a modified texture, like someone with a dysphagia type diet. This year, surprisingly enough, with all that's going on, we have a lower enrollment, but our meals went up, and I think they went up quite significantly. Our breakfast meals went up 10%. We averaged close to 3,900. Our lunch meals went up 13.2%. Close to 10,000. Our daily snacks are 1,000. That's, and when I refer to snacks, that's like an after snack or an after school snack program. And the average daily a la carte is $7,718, which is a little more than 2% increase. Our budget is approximately $13 million. There's been some losses since COVID. The Department of Defense, there was a loss of almost 141,000. Commodities that were canceled, 26,000. Currently in student meal debt, we have 2,000. Loss from the extra 40 cents reimbursement waiver was close to $1 million, so that was a big hit. And loss for providing no-cost reduced meal price is close to 38,000. Our gains, of course, we do a fresh fruit and vegetable program. That's like a pass-through. We don't make any money off of it. Whatever we spend goes directly to the classroom. And that was close to 85,000. Meal participation is up in all areas. And we attribute that to we're doing more, we call it home scratch cooking. We had some chefs over the summer visit and train our staff how to make homemade pizzas, homemade macaroni and cheese, and a few other items. And we certainly intend on doing more of that. We've also done some beautiful cafeteria remodels in 5 schools, and we just put a payment down to do Murray, so that's just around the corner. So, and here's some pictures of some of those remodels. Hope Sound Middle School in the middle. Just, you know, we get input from the kids and from faculty and so forth. And here's just some pictures of, we have Chef Paula working with staff on making the red bliss potatoes and with rosemary. That's probably one of our most popular sides. Kids love it. Makes a great smell in the cafeteria. And then we have, of course, the chef teaching the staff how to do the pizzas. And of course, at conferences, we learn quite a bit, and we get that information and bring that back to our staff. The other great, exciting thing we did this year is we rolled out Fresh Eats. We wanted to brand it, so we put a new kind of twist, the green shirt and black apron with Fresh Eats, and it's kind of like a Chipotle style, with students being able to make their own choices on what they want on their, it could be a bowl or a salad, whatever they want, rice bowl. And then here's some of our goals update. We're expanding more menu options, attending, of course, conferences, meetings, trainings to identify trends, recipes, and new menu options. Working with FDAC's chef Jorge Sanchez to incorporate more home scratch recipes, testing new recipes in our kitchen prior to testing with students, practicing environmentally conscious practices in our cafeteria. We have styrofoams, fewer straws, recyclable options. We provide daily vegan or vegetarian options to students. We utilize new technology in our combi ovens to decrease the need for some staff to and to be able to remotely enter recipes from the district office. So basically all they do is push a button and it will cook. Communicating program changes with key stakeholders, improving customer satisfaction by offering student-friendly promotions with National School Breakfast Program, Breakfast and Lunch Week, and holiday meals and new menu concepts. We monitor employee retention through union negotiations, increase in wages and supplements for challenging positions that are difficult to employ. We also have a community eligible program. That's the schools that receive free meals. And we did a video. We also put out there that even if they have a picky eater, that if they just take 3 of our items with a vegetable grain milk, it would be no cost to the parent. So they could supplement if the child wants a sandwich, the parent doesn't have to go out and provide those other things. We can do that for them. Now, Yvonne's going to discuss some of the new changes this year, or this coming school year, and I'll let her review that.
Hello, again, my name is Yvonne Potsko. I am the dietitian with Food Nutrition Department and have been here for more than 20 years, so I've really seen this program evolve for the better with nutritional standards coming into play. Next year, the big change the students will notice is at breakfast. We are starting the 2-phase for sugar reduction. Breakfast cereals will be limited to 6 grams of sugar. Yogurt will be limited to 12 grams of added sugar per 6-ounce serving. And flavored milk is limited to 10 grams of added sugar. The only notice that the children may pay attention to is cereal, because some fan favorites may disappear. But we've been gradually moving over to lower sugar cereals, so it shouldn't be a big adjustment for them. Our yogurt and milk, we have been gradually knowing this phase is coming in, so there shouldn't be any change at all. In 2027, the big reduction is when it will take place. We will see a 10% of calories from added sugar limit at breakfast. So that will be the big change coming. Also in 2027, the students will start to notice a reduction in sodium. We have gradually phased in sodium reduction, and in 2027 will be our next big reduction. And that's why the home scratch cooking that Laura keeps mentioning is so important. We've been in our test kitchen just testing away, trying to find student-friendly products that the kids will like and recipes that will meet these standards that are coming into play. Smart snacks in school, what they are snacks that children can purchase on campus, not only in our cafeteria, but this is for vending machines, any type of on-campus venue. And there are nutritional standards for these items that are sold to students. So I'll review what the standards are just to give you a little overview. We have nutrient standards for food type products that the students can purchase at school. The snack limit is 200 or less calories. That's what our limit is for snacks. Sodium limits are 230 milligrams. Fat limits are 35% of calories from total fat, 10% of saturated fat, and 0 trans fats. Also, we do have sugar limits on the snacks we sell. They cannot exceed 35% of the weight from total sugar. Even the beverages we sell have standards. Of course, water, carbonated, still water, any of those are fair game to sell to students at any size. Milk, for unflavored and flavored milks, there are size limits. We cannot exceed 8 ounces for elementary students and 12 ounces for middle and high students. And 100% juices we are able to sell, but again with size limitations. 8 ounces for elementary and 12 ounces for middle and high school students. So we also wanted to show the packaging of Smart Snacks. They've really done a great job in the retail to, I should say the manufacturers found a great way of making products look similar to products in retail. They wanted to make it familiar so students weren't intimidated by these different items sold at school. So they may look similar to what you purchase in the retail market, but they are nutritionally different. They have to meet those Smart Snacks standards. So you can see in the photo, the Cheez-Its, for example, look very similar, but ours are portion controlled, they have less sodium, and they also are whole grain rich. We also sell fruit juice slushies. They are 100% fruit juice. Kids really enjoy them, especially since we do live in Florida and it is hot here. But we wanted to share that there is no added sugar in those fruit juice slushies. It is comparable to a fruit juice box, but the kids tend to like it because it's refreshing and it's something fun that they can pick up at a retail store, but it is Smart Snack compliant. Another product we offer is carbonated Izzy fruit juices. It is diluted with some carbonated water, and it is a product we sell in middle and high schools. You can see that the added sugar is 0. It is all from fruit juice, natural sugars. And when you compare it to a Sprite that children tend to really enjoy, you can see there is 24 grams of added sugar where the Izzy is 0 added. Also, the ice cream we sell is Smart Snack compliant. You can see the sugar differences in the retail version versus our Smart Snack product. The Smart Snack cookie and cream cone, for example, is 14 grams of added sugar, where the retail version would be 23 grams. So it is reduced and meets that guideline of 35%. And Laura will share some more.
Yeah, some of our continual action plan items are, one of the main ones is employee retention. We will continue to pursue and recruit internal employees that display leadership qualities and prepare the staff so that they are moved up into leadership roles. We are upgrading and improving the cafeteria environment in our middle schools, improve our marketing plan to include additional promotions and celebrations, increase our presence and visibility on our district-approved social media platforms, utilize more green strategies to introduce students to about environmental sustainability. And this year, something new we're doing, we have our summer bus, which I think everyone has seen. There was a grant where if you were going to a place that was designated rural, we could provide weekend meals for them. So we have some shelf-stable weekend meals that we will be distributing in Indiantown. And then one of our main goals, this is very important, is that we educate the public on our school nutrition standards and regulations. We also have a lot of district celebrations. Food and Nutrition Services celebrates employees by recognizing an Employee of the Week. You know, with our 180 employees, we want to make them all feel special, but some really do go above and beyond, and they receive a certificate of recognition and a token of appreciation. Some fun meals and treats are provided at our monthly managers meeting. We do a lot of site visits where we look for best practices. Once we see some, we record them or photograph them, and we share them with managers at our managers meeting, and recognize that staff in those kitchens. Managers and staff that are, we call them association members. We have a local Martin County School Food Service Association, and there's a state School Nutrition Association and a National School Food Service Association. So we invite them to attend our local conferences, and we, with our group of employees, they have to attend certain professional standard training, and at these conferences they get that, and also there's a bunch of food samplings that go on, so, and we get to see new exciting products. Food and Nutrition Services staff belong to the local school Nutrition Association for Professional Development and networking. 3 out of 10 state awards were awarded to Martin County, as you know, and they were recognized right here in our district. And we have another surprise coming this week, which I can't really talk about too much, but it has to do with an extra special 1 out of 5 in the entire state who will be recognized as a Florida school lunch superhero. So we're really excited that's going on. And that was out of 800 applicants, entries. And I just want to say one last thing with food nutrition. Our business is that one of the biggest businesses, not only in this county, but it's also in the United States. We serve over 30 million meals a day. So we rely on our manufacturers to follow the standards that Yvonne went over today. So it's very important that we meet with those manufacturers, that we test those. And, you know, I always joke around, I'm like the queen of pizza, right, in the office. I love pizza. So when they changed the standard to it must be whole grain, these companies did horrible, and it wasn't edible. And now it's like they've perfected it. So it's great. So, and you'll see that with our department. We also, we have our own brand, and it aligns with the district, Eat Well, Stay Well, and then our mission statement is to provide the resources to nourish student success. Any questions?
First of all, thank you so much for that presentation. I learned a lot, and I'm happy to see the sugar being pulled out and the salt, because those are somewhat deadly.
Yeah.
Dr. Moriarty.
Yes.
Yes, I have several questions. Thank you for this phenomenal presentation, both of you. Really, really impressed as well. The fresh eats in the high school, love that slide, all those fresh things for the high schoolers. Any plans to expand that program possibly into the middle schools?
We would actually love to. And part of the issue is we need to get staffed, and we need to get staff trained. And, you know, once we do that, then we'll probably start rolling it out. We're thinking maybe Hidden Oaks being our first school.
Yeah, I'd love to see that expand. That is a great lunch for our kids. Number 2, on your slide about less sugar, it's slide 9, limits for added sugar. When you reduce those down, it's not supplementing them with a sugar derivative like aspartame or saccharin or anything like that, because a lot of people go out to eat and they see sugar-free cheesecake and it's loaded with sucralose or something that's even worse than sugar. I just want to make sure that's not the case here.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Absolutely not. We do not substitute with those artificial sweeteners.
Wonderful. And then on the smart snacks list, we had that come to us at a previous meeting. Sometimes the smart snacks from the USDA is very broad, and you'll see cookies and donuts and Pop-Tarts and things like that on their smart snacks list. And I think I heard you say that you guys will also be evaluating those lists. So I would just say keep a close eye on those, because there's not too many cookies or donuts that are really smart snacks in my book. And then finally, a big thing we've had in this district is with energy drinks. And it's not that the district has them available, but it's that kids bring them from home and they're drinking energy drinks. And even one of the charter schools outlawed them in the schools this year. And I would love to see the district do that. I know we're working on a policy for that. Would you guys be in favor of that, outlawing those in being brought into the school?
That's something I really haven't thought of too much. So you're saying that the school principal would say not to bring in certain items like soda and so forth, and those high energy drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is a good idea. I've always been a strong proponent of having parents make decisions about their children. And of course, this is something that comes from home and isn't necessarily regulated. But I think that is something that a principal would have every right to do. Because some principals do say, no, don't bring in soda, or don't bring in this, especially at the elementary level. And then kids basically get used to those standards, and as they grow up.
Right, then they get into the workforce and
Yes.
they need a Rockstar energy drink just to start their day. So
Right.
I think that's important for our kids. Thank you so much for all those answers and for your presentations, both of you. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure, thank you. Oh, did you have a question?
Roberts?
Oh, sorry.
And then Ms. Powers.
I just wanted to say, I believe I'm correct, and Mr. Morrison will be able to correct me. I believe that we should be thanking the taxpayers, because I think the sales tax is what is funding the cafeteria remodels. I think it's like $896,000 per redo of a cafeteria. Is that?
At this point, Mrs. Roberts, that's not ringing a bell, but I will double check for you and make sure I have the correct answer. I know there were some sales tax projects that were in the original list. I probably should divert that to Mr. Seacrest for a better answer, but it's not ringing a bell at this time.
Yeah, if you can bring that back to us, because I'm pretty sure cafeteria remodels were in that original list. Thank you.
Powers.
So I don't really have a question, but just a comment. I think that I really appreciate all you do. I think that you all, not in addition to providing nutritional food for our students every day, the presentation and the mannerisms and the professionalism of your staff interacting with the students makes it more appealing for them to come into the cafeteria and welcoming to purchase the food, and they're more excited about what is offered in the school. So I appreciate you being innovative and listening to students and to our big students and our teachers and our staff that also enjoy the food that you put out. So to have the expanse of from the littlest to adults enjoying the food in a school cafeteria is a big accomplishment. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. I did want to mention, expectations are much higher now, and our department is definitely going to recognize that and be the Chick-fil-A or the Walt Disney World, and be super friendly to the kids and make it a great environment where they feel comfortable coming to our employees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have a note? Okay. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We appreciate everything you do. Next up, we have Martin Arts presentation by Nancy Turrell. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. And I want to acknowledge I have a couple of board members here with us as well, Lee England and Liz Bonin. So thank you for being here to support us, and if you have questions, obviously. I want to thank everybody for their time and attention today, all the school board members, superintendent, and staff. Really, today is just a moment in time, and we have all worked together for many, 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 many years, and I think that speaks volumes about your willingness to embrace, celebrate, and support arts education and the value that it brings to the students in our community. Many districts aren't seeing this value and have decimated arts programming. So although I know we face challenges always due to census counts and funding, I appreciate that you're doing your best to keep this critical programming in place. You know as well as I do that the arts in the classroom are keeping some of the students engaged and enrolled because it's where they feel most at home, and it gets them through all the other courses that they have to take. My goal today for this presentation is to update you on where we are with respect to the vision for an arts campus on the historic Stewart High School property, and to share a few notes on recent happenings and connections. Martin Arts is leading the way, as we have for decades, in securing a vibrant arts scene rich with educational opportunities for our youth, for our future. The site of the historic Stewart High School is a perfect location, as we've talked about before, close to downtown Stewart, and it's a structure that is well-suited to a renovation dedicated to education and enrichment. Historic schools across the country have been repurposed for similar uses. Just last Saturday, we celebrated Historic Preservation Month. We had 100 or so folks come visit us in your old school board meeting room over there. We had the jazz ensemble from Stewart Middle School, and we had students from South Fork High School's Carillon perform as well, already blending the historic preservation and the arts together in one space. Oop. Scroll right here. So we, as you also know, have been working on this project for a while. But really, the roots of this idea were grounded in 1980 for Palm City. And although that project didn't happen in this community, the idea of a cultural center has been a concept that's been discussed at our board table for decades. The current vision was seeded with a board planning session where we learned from school board member Lee Roberts and former County Commissioner Doug Smith that the property at Stewart High School was being vacated. This was the answer to our question of where this arts campus should land. But then came COVID and forward progress was slower than expected. In the last 2 years, however, I'm pleased to say that significant work has been done to lay the groundwork for executing our plan with schematic design drawings and a business plan completed. We have done many things in the years that we have been working on this project. Volunteer support has been instrumental in planning for this vision. Experts in the construction and development field have been lending their knowledge, guiding us through the process. Business and arts professionals have helped us develop and think through the business plan and pro forma operating budget. Donors have lent an amazing amount of support towards this initial phase of planning needed to put the vision on paper, and I will tell you that funding to cover planning, which is intangible, is one of the hardest kind of a dollar to raise. The school board, you all have been very supportive of every step, and we obviously look forward to this continued partnership because this project benefits our schools and many of the nonprofit organizations in arts and non-arts sector moving forward. I have a quote that talks about why this is important, and Albert Einstein was noted to have said, "Creativity is intelligence having fun." And I think that highlights how creativity isn't just about the arts, it's about a crucial aspect of cognitive development and problem solving. Uh-oh. There we go. The down arrow and the closed screen are close together. So some of the features of the campus I wanted to talk about. Historic preservation is obviously a key part of it. In fact, so far, we're in our second $50,000 planning grant from the Division of Historic Resources. And so the state is aware of the value of not only the 100-plus-year-old building of the historic Stewart High School, but the 2 mid-century modern buildings out front that were created in the late 1950s. These will become a hub for artists and nonprofit arts organizations and will be focused on enhancing arts education and hands-on experiences for all. Our short-term goals include obtaining a historical marker for the campus, and work will be done towards securing a registration for the property on the National Register of Historic Places, as has been noted in our draft lease agreement. The project is estimated to cost $30 million, with funds earmarked for both endowing of future repairs and maintenance, as well as scholarships. Construction alone will be about 2/3 of that cost, and the remaining will include things like furniture, fixtures, and equipment, architecture costs, acousticians, and other experts, including fundraising and grant writing. So now some pictures. The schematic design for this is building 17, which is the western of the 2 buildings out front, which will become artist studios. They will come to life with artists working in these spaces. They will have access to the buildings 24/7. Students from across the district can come and meet the students, see them while they work. With the proximity to Stewart Middle School, we anticipate artists being willing to work with the art teacher at Stewart Middle School and come visit the art clubs and foster continued development of that program. And really not just Stewart Middle School, but it's so close, it's so easy. With a focus on STEAM, students moving from Stewart Middle to Jensen Beach High School, we will be building extracurricular programming that enhances that focus. In Building 18, which is the eastern of the two buildings out front, we are proposing to create a makerspace and cafe. The makerspace will be outfitted with pottery wheels, ceramic equipment, soldering irons to do light metal working, really fine crafts media. Not that you can't teach a painting class in there, but it's really designed for those fine crafts media. And, you know, this goes from educating current students to adults and really being a team building space for district staff, other businesses in the community to come do something creative together really helps you work together better as a team. Homeschool groups and charter schools would have access to these spaces for a fee, not everything, it won't all be free, but to use this space as their art classroom, because I know that that is something that would really benefit all of the other students in the community. The cafe will provide a convenient spot to grab coffee and a light bite before or after class or while you're picking your kid up from a program. This will continue to build on the cohesion that we envision that the center creates for our community. Here's a couple of more views. This is, the top one is pottery wheels, so you're standing in the makerspace looking into the cafe, and the other one is standing in the cafe. The idea of the windows between the two spaces, that if you are just grabbing a muffin, a cup of coffee, and there's a class going on, there's entertainment built in right there that you can watch what's being done in the makerspace. We have just released a second follow-up RFP for architectural services to really get to construction documents on this, what we consider to be phase one of the construction, those two 1950s buildings. This is part of where the second grant from the Division of Historic Resources will be used. And to date, we have, just so that you know, raised in excess of $500,000 just to do what we have done. We are having conversations about naming rights for the lead gifts that are necessary to make this project come to fruition. Unfortunately, as everybody is aware, timing out there right now couldn't be worse with the downturn of people's portfolios and the general unease that people are feeling. Doesn't lead to quick decision-making by some of the private philanthropy. But we are getting there and making progress. And when we launched into this project, we really anticipated about 30 to 50% of the funding for the project coming from a variety of different governmental partners and the balance from individuals. So although we are continuing to work on that and have an Our Town grant submitted last August to the National Endowment for the Arts, you know, that funding is being cut and eliminated all over. So, you know, the governmental component of this may not end up being a reality, but hopefully it'll all settle out and come back around by the time we get to conclusion. Now moving into some of the floor plans for the main building on the campus, the historic Stewart High School. The daylight basement is the architectural term for the basement first floor level. This is historically where the principal's office was. It was the original cafeteria before they built another cafeteria off back behind the building. But we expect it to hold arts education gallery, dressing and green rooms to support the theater space, which is right above it, rooms for music, dance, and more. Event rentals are a key part of our earned income projections for the business plan about how this campus will operate once renovated. The amenities that are here on this level like the green room and dressing rooms, make it ideal for things like having a wedding in this facility, that you have a place where you can prepare. The main level, which is technically the second floor, will host an auditorium, which historically was an auditorium space. Many of the alumni that we've taken through the facilities talk about how this was a community gathering space. It wasn't just for students in the schools, and I expect that to be part of how it operates moving forward. We will be able to seat about 295 people. There'll be concessions in a gift shop area, meeting room spaces, and that main lobby area will have a focus on telling the story, the history of the facility and the buildings. The Stage Tower addition that we have proposed across the back will offer full fly space for the theater, which none of the other theaters in the community have. Neither the Lyric, Starstruck, or the Barn have that, which offers new and different opportunities of what can be produced on this stage. There'll be a catering kitchen, but really the original impetus of the Stage Tower in the back was a safe place and acoustically sound space for the HVAC and other mechanical equipment necessary to run the facility. The third floor will host a very large multi-purpose space. Historically, this was the library of the high school. This can be used for everything from music rehearsals, weddings, and other special events, fundraisings from other nonprofit organizations in the community. Art classrooms are found on this level, as well as several small music rehearsal spaces. The rooftop terrace on top of the Stage Tower building will provide a great view of the St. Lucie River and host a variety of gatherings, things like a sunrise yoga class and a VIP reception that leads into something that's happening on one of the floors below. And my last slide. We have several things that are going on, again, all connecting back with our students in our community. High School Juried Art Show is on the walls of the Courthouse Cultural Center right now. It runs through June 21st. I want to thank Superintendent Maine, Board Member Pritchett, and Moriarty for attending the reception last week and selecting the Superintendent's Award. At the next meeting, we're inviting the students to come to be recognized by you. We had 71 students in total who participated in the show this year. Some of them will also be Thursday night at Congressman Mast's reception at IRSC Chastain Center for the Congressional Art Award. He selects from artwork from his entire district. It'll all be on display at Chastain Center, and awards will be given, which includes having the winning piece go up to be displayed in Washington. So if that's not on your calendar, you might want to put that on there. We are also recruiting for Marty's nominations. Students who are going into their senior year in August are eligible in the performing, literary, and visual arts. And I put a column here on partnership notes because there's a lot of work that we do in the community that I think goes unseen, one of which is Women Supporting the Arts Grants. WSA is the first women's giving circle in the community. You may be aware of Impact 100 that makes the big, huge $100,000 grants to nonprofit organizations in the community, but WSA has been around for 20 years, providing $500,000, 2,500 small grants that really make a difference, whether it be in the classroom, like the classrooms I've noted on here that received support this year, or to the other organizations who ask for funding. So we do that. We had an Arts Day field trip earlier this year. We had almost 80 students working with mentor artists. I think this is kind of like a CTE program for arts students. They get to learn from and work with professional artists in the community. It's a great project. And then, of course, the High School Juried Art Show. So I want to thank you again for helping us work together to create these deep connections between our organizations and the students. Our mission remains to provide and enhance opportunities for students to learn to be creative, which is so much value no matter what field each of those students choose to follow. So again, I want to thank you for this opportunity to present and happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Dr. Moriarty?
Nancy, fantastic presentation. Thank you for having me and others to your reception, the awards reception the other night. It was packed there. Great to see people getting out to be in favor of the arts and seeing that it still matters in this community. I just wanted to ask you about your, I guess it's a performing arts center part of that, the first floor and second floor with the 292 seats. You mentioned weddings as I guess a private event. What kind of public events might be able to be hosted there on that setting?
So in the performing arts space, everything from, one of the things we've identified as a need in the community, there isn't really a foreign film venue. So things like foreign films, plays, so theatrical productions, lectures, music recitals, all of that will be available, ticketed, and we would work with the schools like Stewart Middle School to provide the space to them for some of their recitals and programming as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy, very much.
My pleasure.
Very
Thank you.
comprehensive. Appreciate it. Okay. Budget workshop number 3, Carter Morrison.
And I had to follow those wonderful presentations. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, superintendent, members of the public, staff in attendance. Thank you for being here this afternoon for budget workshop number 3. This afternoon, we're going to go through a range of issues, and in my budget presentation, we'll also be tag teaming some information from the Director of Purchasing as well as from the operations team this afternoon for discussion. I'm on slide number 3 with respect to where we are in the budget process. Of course, we're in an extended session right now. The legislature has not concluded the budget. We are in an extended session until June 6th with a lot of issues still remaining on the table for the House and the Senate to be discussed. However, what I'll be presenting today as we go through the presentation are the various proposals from the House and the Senate as it relates to the FEFP budget and what we can expect or not expect next year. So at the beginning of the session, the governor, as his norm, is required to submit his budget recommendation. And at that time, you can see on the second bar chart, you will see $173 million, which was his presentation. As of the third FEFP calculation, this is our October count last year, we were at $168.5 million. You can see in the blue the House's proposal at 167, and the Senate is a little bit higher at 168. So what I will do at this point, I will slow down because there's a lot of numbers here. With respect to our counts, we are still making adjustments, and I know that our staff is working with the DOE database with respect to the February count, so we will, once we have that information finalized, we'll submit that to the board and probably at budget workshop number 4. So in the FEFP third calculation, on the first column, you'll see 19,841.84 FTE. Just a reminder that FTE includes FES, aka vouchers, as well as charter schools. So in the House's presentation, their FTE is at 20,177.22, which is also inclusive of FES vouchers as well as charter schools. However, the Senate, in their proposal, they have pulled out the FES and what would be a true district, school district, traditional and charter school budget, or in Senate Bill 2500. Senator Gates has proposed that the FES be treated like a separate categorical, so which will make things a little bit smoother as we're not integrating their funding and FEF into the FEFP when you're looking at what we can truly expect at the school district. So that is why there's a, in the column to the right, where it's third calc versus House Bill 5001 and third calc versus Senate Bill 2500, you'll see that variation in FTE as it, because one includes it and one does not. The FEFP is weighted through various cost factors, and our required local effort taxes, the millage rate is set by the Florida Department of Education. We do not have control over the millage. Typically, when the property appraiser certifies by law to the state by July 19th, then the state will then tell us what our required effort, local effort is to be that thou shalt levy in the tentative budget and the final budget, which is before you in July and September of each year. The discretionary tax is 0.748. Typically, that is not really discretionary. Most school districts and the FEFP assumes that everyone will levy the 0.748 millage, so that's the only benefit that we actually get with the increases in the tax roll. The total local revenue currently is $140,727,220, and as I will go through the proposals, you will see that the House significantly drops their state funding portion, and a lot of it is picked up by the local portion. You can see at the highlighted section at the bottom, 88% goes from 83%, and in the Senate, pretty much keeps it at the same local contribution portion at 82%. State revenue would go from 27.8 million currently to 20,267,000 in the House and 29,534,000 in the Senate. On the next slide, slide 6, this is more of a detailed look and analysis of the funding coming through from the third FEFP calculation, comparing to the House and the Senate bills offer. The tax roll, as you can see, the taxable assessed value on line 3 goes from $38.3 billion to $40.3 billion in the House and the Senate. Again, that is based on the EDR, which is the Economic and Demographic Research arm of the legislature, where they will have an ad valorem estimating conference and propose that those will be based on economic conditions, that those will be the tax rolls that the school district will be levying against. That represents a 5.12% increase. Running through the various formulas, you have your base student allocation, which is $5,330.98 currently, and you can see both proposals in the House and the Senate. House going up by $50.51, and the Senate goes up by $66.77. When you look, however, at the base funding, which is the calculation of your weighted FTE, your base student allocation, and your comparative wage factor, you can see that the base funding drops in the House by $824,557, and in the Senate, because they're pulling out the vouchers or FES FTE, drops by over $16 million. The categoricals that we do receive so far, or what's left, is Safe Schools in the amount of $1.8 million. We will talk about that further and some further slides we have here. ESE guaranteed allocation in the Senate drops to $6.7 million or $1.5 million. You may recall in budget workshop number 1, I covered the various federal regulations that require the school district to maintain its effort, and there are several ways to calculate that, which would be local funding, local funds, and you have to spend the same amount that you spent in the prior year or more. You can do it by local funds. You can do it by state and local combined. You can do local per capita and state dollars per capita. So with the local funds, should the Senate prevail, we might have to go into the per capita funding, which is the most generous calculation that we can do to make sure that we're maintaining effort. The other ones are educational enrichment allocation, student transportation, and your mental health assistant, which gives you a gross FEFP currently of $139.8 million. In the House, 139.7, not much difference. And in the Senate is 121,678,822. Flipping over to slide 7. Carrying forward those numbers, The required local effort estimated right now is 113,171,209. So that is taken away or deducted from the gross FEFP based on your local contribution share of your property taxes in the FEFP formula. In the House, it goes to 117,804, and in the Senate is 109,517. The current year, on line 17, we did have what we call a proration, which means that once the budget is passed, the General Appropriation Act establishes the ceiling on the budget, and if there are more students that show up after the October count, there is no more money, then you get prorated down. So this year, we lost over $1.4 million. However, on line 18, you'll see we had a education stabilization funding. That was also part of the General Appropriations Act, whereby in the 2024-25 conference report, if your funds per FTE declined either through your October count or in your second calculation, then they would sort of help with the fluctuation in the FTE as a result of the vouchers. So we have a net state FEFP and currently have 25.8 million, which drops in the House to 21.9, and in the Senate, 12.161 million. Then, of course, we have to take out $20.9 million currently for those vouchers. So on line 23, currently the adjusted net state FEFP, which is part of what we receive 1/12 of every month, is $10.155 million. In the House, it would drop to $2,894,297, which is a $7.2 million drop. And I'll explain how the House makes that up. In the Senate, it would be $12.161 million. The only true categorical left is class size reduction allocation, on line 24, which then gives you total state funding currently of $27.8 million, whereas in the House is $20,267,348, and the Senate would be $29,534,340. So in the House, we would drop by over $7.5 million. In the Senate, we would be up by about $1.7 million year over year. However, as I commented, that the House makes up, because their state funding drops to $2.8 million, you will notice that in the House, the House goes for, currently we levy $140,727,000. The House will raise, or is proposing to raise, local funds by going to $146,772, and the Senate sort of drops it to $138.4 million. So what we lose in state funding, you will now see an increase of $6,044,863 in the House, and in the Senate, we will be down $2.24 million. So combined, you can see that currently we're at, on line 31, you will see that the total state and local funding combined is $168 million. Slated to go to 167 in the House, and pretty much flat or within $500,000 within the Senate. So rolling forward those two numbers, the deficit of, or reduction of $1.5 million in the House, and in the Senate, $541,000. On slide 8, shows the roll forward of those negative balances. Now, $168 million sounds like a lot of money. However, we have to deduct the charter schools. The charter schools get a pro rata share of our funding, and based on that, currently it's about $15 million that go out to the charter schools, and slated to go to $16.6 million on either the House or the Senate. Based on a pro rata share, it's about 9.2% of our funding. Then what we typically do is, based on our history, we can see that we've been losing FTE for several years now, and what we've done is we've had to reserve some FTE in the budget to protect us in case the 10-day count comes and we don't have those students show up. Then we have funds that we can send back to the state in order to not have to cut our budget any further. Then we get into what had happened in 23-24. In 23-24, we had various categoricals of teacher salary increase, instructional materials, reading program, and teacher supply assistance. Those categoricals were eliminated, and the state now instructs you through proviso language that you need to deduct those funds from your base funding. So teacher salary increase, now let me be careful how I say this. Teacher salary increase is $7.9 million currently, $8.442 million in the House, and $9.417 million in the Senate. That does not mean that we are going to give raises in the amount of $7.9 million, 8.4, or $9.4 million. A significant portion of those funds are to pay for recurring salary increases that we have awarded in the past in accordance with the law. So I just wanted to make that absolutely clear. Instructional materials, again, that's another item that went away. And with that, also the instructional media categorical, that we've been meeting with the schools and talking with them about these issues. The adoption committee recommendation has been approved. And at this point, the next step now is for the publishers to give us pricing so we know we can bring before the board, but we reserved at least $1.3 million in the budget for that. Reading program drops to about $750. Again, we'll be working with the curriculum and instruction department on exactly what that needs to be for next year. And the teacher supply assistance program is the dollars that we give to the teachers to purchase classroom supplies. By statute, they have to sign an affidavit certifying that these funds will be used strictly for their classroom supplies. And we administer that program through a platform called ClassWallet. So all in all, another deduction of about $10.4 million in 24-25, 10.8 in 25-26 in the House, and $11.8 million in the Senate. The reason being is that in the Senate, the TSIA dollars are a little bit more that the Senate is awarding as opposed to the House. So the House is awarding $521,000 more, and in the Senate is 1.551, which obviously we will negotiate that with our MCEA union. So in subtracting the required categoricals that in subtracting the categoricals that we know we have to spend funds on, our current subtotal is $141.6 million, and in the House drops to $138.571, and in the Senate, $138.514. So on the extreme right bottom corner, you can see that we're looking at a deficit of over $3,075,814 in the House, and in the Senate, $3.133 million. Rolling forward, those deficit numbers from the House and the Senate, we also know that the state does not fund any FRS increase. So in House Bill 5007 and Senate Bill 7022, it lays out the proposed FRS rates for next year. And round numbers, it looks to be about a 0.40 percentage point increase. Mostly, as you might know, our highest homogeneous class would be our teachers. So therefore, most of them are regular officer class. So it will go from 13.63% to a little over 14%. Estimated cost of raises. This one you probably have not seen before when we've done this over the years, because typically I would have enough retirees to help us to offset whatever salary increases may be coming in the next year. But this year we only have 32 retirees as opposed to 100 to 150 that we have. We suspect that the extension of drop to the 8 years may have impacted folks' decisions on whether or not they will retire or whether they will stay on board. The next one is the potential impact. Now, the sovereign immunity bill, the House passed it, but the Senate has not taken that up. More than likely, that will not go through this year, so next update, you might see me strike that one off the list. depending upon what may happen in the ninth hour, you never know. The next item is the estimated cost for the year 3 of the financial federal and operational audit. By law, the Auditor General has the option of skipping the operational audit for any school districts. Matter of fact, any county that has more than 150,000 residents. So once you pass that threshold or that benchmark, they can skip for 3 years. So we're in the 3rd year of that operational audit. We will need Sherry Beckert to conduct that audit again this year. What I will bring before the board at the appropriate time is whether or not you still want to do that audit, because you have some options to continue the financial audit, which we are required to do. The federal and the single audit is required. However, the operational is not required, which may save you about $42,000, depending upon if the board wants to proceed with that. Typically, we get a letter from FP&L right around January or so of each year, depending upon what FUMPA does and in terms of what their utility rates will be. So we're reserving some increase for that of about $300,000 coming into next year's budget. The other line item is the estimated impact of the sheriff SRO contract increase. They have requested additional funding. I do have some slides that we can talk about that in a moment, so I will ask board members to just pause on that for a moment. And other cost increases due to inflation and tariffs. You might recall on our last board meeting, and I actually do have a slide on this, superintendent had to take some emergency actions within his authority to avoid us paying a $92,000 cost increase, because the vendor indicated to us that, you know, their supplies are getting low, and the next shipment that comes in will probably be about a 25% increase on cost. So altogether, there's an additional $6.3 million in deficits that we have to cover in our budget. So the total net position right now standing before you is $9,439,773 in the House, and in the Senate, it's $9,497,467 in the Senate. Just a summarization so far. Again, budget's not done, but just the distinction between the two proposals. In the House, they keep the FES unweighted FTE and funding in their FEFP. The Senate removes it. As I mentioned, Senator Getz made a proposal to take that out, and so you would see a pure school district, traditional school district and charter budget, whereas the FES would just be a number as a categorical. The House continues to include it with the FES with the funding in the district, and as I mentioned, the Senate creates a categorical fund for the scholarships. The House keeps the Education Stabilization Fund in their proposal. The Senate eliminates it. The House keeps the state-funded discretionary supplement, and the Senate eliminates it. The House proposes a 50% reduction in the add-on FTE except for industry certification, whereas the Senate proposes a 50% reduction in all add-on FTE. The House proposes an increase in the TSIA of $521,000, whereas the Senate increases the allocation to $1.5 million. So ultimately, the House reduces funding by $1.5 million. The Senate reduces it by $541,000. So the next couple of slides, we'll just talk a little bit about the request from the Sheriff's Office for an increase in the 25-26 SRO contract. Currently, we pay for that contract out of the general operating fund to the tune of about $2.6 million. And from the millage, the board has been gracious enough to, and the voters, to allow us to have extra officers, 2 at each high school, et cetera, for about $682,000. So the overall cost is about $3.2 million. The request is for that amount to go to $5,350,000, which would add another $2 million to our cost. So if you look at the bottom chart, you will see the fiscal years 21-22 through 24-25, and just kind of referring back to my previous slides of how much money we get from the state for Safe Schools. You will see that in 21-22, and these numbers are net of charter schools getting their pro rata share. In 21-22, for example, we received $1.1 million in state revenues, but our expenditures were about $2 million. So we're subsidizing from the general fund $897,000. So in 24-25, you could see the same pattern. So we have been subsidizing from the general operating fund for those funds to try to make sure that we pay for that contract. The next slide is to show that the latest election in 2024, the voters reapproved, if you will, the up to 0.50 millage and for operating purposes, and I extracted some of the language. One of the approved categories is school safety and security, which allows us to, pay for those extra officers that I mentioned to the tune of $682,000. So this ballot language was approved on November the 5th, 2024, and you can see the statistics of approval. On this next slide, what I'm attempting to say is that currently our tax roll is about $38.3 billion. The House and the Senate are using $40.3 billion. So we know that the increase in the tax roll is going to be about $1.965 billion, or 5.12%. The board, at this last round, levied a 0.425 mills, and the estimated proceeds at 96% are about $16.4 million. If we do nothing and keep the millage at the same rate, the estimated proceeds go up to about the current proceeds are 15.6 million, and the estimated proceeds would be at about 16.4 or $800,000 more. In order to raise an additional $2 million, we would need to raise the millage from a 0.425 to a 0.481 mills rate, which is still within the approved 0.50 mills. So at this point, I will just break for if there's any discussion the board wants to have regarding this issue. Or any questions?
Thank you, Carter. Anybody? Ms. Roberts?
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. I think you explained it very well. I think the piece that we're missing, though, is as you show us the increase on page 13 with a potential new millage rate of 0.48112 based on the tax roll, that isn't taking into account the things that we would perhaps eliminate or stop in the millage. For example, the Medicaid person that we have there that was there for 1 year, and some of those other things might be corrected. So just in all transparency, even though we're saying 0.48, it's nice to know we have that ability to do that, but I would expect that when you show us the other numbers, with at least just that one piece coming out, it would be even less than that, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I do have a pro forma income statement and expenditures for the subsequent year, which I can bring back to the board or send that in a separate transmission. But you are correct. The largest numbers on the millage expenditures tend to be the stipends for the teachers, as well as for the AFSCME bargaining units. But there are areas that I obviously would want the board to weigh in on to see whether or not you want to continue those.
Correct, thank you. And I don't know about the rest of the board. I don't really need the pro forma. I'm happy with when we get the whole thing back together.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. So before you, you should have another handout that looks something like this that says approval to issue purchase orders to various vendors for recurring expenditures. And at this time, I'd like to hand this off to Mr. Jeff Carver, who's our Director of Purchasing, to float by you a concept that we have and other districts have successfully implemented in their budget to promote efficiency and to also have accountability to the board with respect to purchase orders. So at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Jeff.
Jeff Carver, Director of Purchasing. So as Mr. Morrison mentioned, when I first came back to Martin County back in July, and I started to navigate through the agenda item process and how requisitions were being approved, I noticed that each time a requisition came through purchasing, if the aggregate total exceeded $50,000 and we didn't have a board-approved contract, those requisitions, regardless of how much they were, some of them have been as low as $700. They end up on the agenda, and there's a little asterisk that says aggregate. So as Mr. Morrison mentioned, when I left Martin County in 2016 and went to Indian River County, they introduced me to a new concept, a way to better address that. And it's called the recurring vendor list. And basically what would happen each year in either May or June for the next fiscal year, a list of recurring vendors with not to exceed amounts and the legal authority, either that they were bid exempt or that they were per a properly awarded contract by another agency. All that information would go to the board, and then once they approved it, we were allowed then, the superintendent had the authority then to issue those purchase orders perpetually without delay. And then each quarter, we would submit to the board a report of released purchase orders so that they could see that we had not exceeded the authority. And so I'll walk through the information, and then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address those. But we're talking about common vendors that are used for for instructional materials like Florida School Book Depository, Benchmark, instructional services that we receive. It'd be like maintenance and facilities related vendors for HVAC, any kind of emergencies that come up that are related to the buildings. And I'll give you a few examples as we move through, but I won't read the entire narrative, but it kind of basically covers the who, what, why, and where, and where the legal authority lies. It's an alternative method to bringing those requisitions, typically under $50,000, back to the board because we've exceeded that aggregate total amount of $50,000. So if you go to the second page, this is what the attachment looks like. It's a spreadsheet. Now, what we're proposing is not going to have this many vendors on it. Initially, it's going to probably have 15 to 25 vendors. But I've highlighted First Fire as an example. So the board in Indian River County approved an aggregate total of $140,000. And we give a description of the services or the goods that we're going to be purchasing, and then on the far right, we have the legal authority, and in this case, it was a St. Lucie County Schools bid that we were utilizing. If you skip over the third page, so I highlighted the first item on the previous list because it was First Fire, and it turns out that First Fire, the amount that the board approved was a little bit understated because of some reasons. So what we did in that case was we went back to the board and we asked that number be amended, and this is the detail on how we did it. It was very transparent. We provided the board with the circumstances that came up and the reasons why we needed to increase it, and then they did. And then if you go to the last page, this is what the report looks like. The school board in Indian River County, they didn't need to know each purchase order. They wanted to know how many purchase orders were released and what the aggregate totals were. So if you can see it balances out. There was $185,000 total of allowable spend, and when we submitted this report, there was still $7,425 left. And this report was valuable in other ways. For me as the purchasing director, when I prepared the report, if I saw that we were getting close to that not to exceed amount, I was able to reach out to the directors of those departments and those divisions and say, what are your expected needs between now and the end of the fiscal year? Because we may want to revisit this total, and it just kept us much more efficient. We weren't reactive. This is really a proactive measure that's fully compliant with School Board Policy 6320, and happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
Roberts?
So I think I understand it conceptually, and I think from the standpoint of the ones that normally are showing up on our $50,000 list, you know, and those are the ones we typically see the asterisk on that, oh, well, we've made 2 purchases from this vendor. Let's say it's a plumbing company, right? We've made 2 purchases, and now we're getting to where we've hit the cap because the second or third purchase has put us over the 50,000, we're now seeing it. I could kind of wrap my head around that, but I think that when we get to larger purchases, and those usually show up on our agenda as a separate list, a larger purchase list, I think the transparency, there's some value to that transparency to see that and to show that there rather than to show it on an overall list. So I guess what I'm saying is, let's say it's the plumber or a vendor that's doing speech services or something along those lines, and we've hit the $50,000, and now we're doing it at another school, and we've got another $20,000, so we see it the next month, and then we have another $10,000, and we see it again because it keeps exceeding, because the aggregate number exceeds the 50. I could kind of see that one coming and saying, okay, well, we expect that to not exceed, we've got it at 50, you won't see it again until it hits over 100. But I don't know what the rest of you think. I just kind of feel like if it's a larger number, it should still be revealed. Comments from my fellow board members? No, so I guess nobody else is worried about that, so whatever.
If I may, Ms. Roberts, in Indian River County, there were occasions where the superintendent was directed by the board, if there's a large initiative with a large purchase, to bring it as a separate agenda item. And that was that was on like large computer refresh projects or something facilities related. And those weren't affected by the recurring vendor approval, that we were just required to bring those back as standalone items.
Okay.
So this is a policy change.
No, ma'am, this is not a policy change. This is all fully in accordance with our current 6320.
Well, I don't think that we can have some maybes that, oh, well, maybe this one will come to the superintendent, or maybe the superintendent will be directed, or maybe it'll come to the board. We have to have some clear definition on how this is going to work, not.
Well, if I may, there were times when the School Board of Indian River County, depending on who they were when they would change board members, they would restrict the limit. They would say anything between $50,000 and $100,000, and others, you know, it was more. But there were times when it was between $50,000 and $100,000, and it still helped us to be more efficient.
And I would be okay with the, if the aggregate is less than 100,000, if we had the list of vendors ahead of time and we're approving that on a list and it was within our policy to do it. But I think from my perspective, once you get over that, it needs to come to us the way that it's come to us in the past. That's just my opinion, though. Thank you.
I have to agree with that. We have to be as transparent as possible and let people know what money we're spending, and I think they've become accustomed to seeing those lists. That's just my opinion.
So I agree with that. I think we have to be consistent in what we do, and if we're going to change it, then I think we have to have very clear parameters on what that's going to look like. And to me, that needs to be approved by the board, not a nod at a workshop. So I think we're going to have something laid out that the board can actually approve and vote on.
So maybe Diane, at a future meeting, we can talk about this and put some parameters so that it's cohesive. Thank you.
I would like for the superintendent to bring forward the language that they're recommending in the form of, then that's something we can talk about and vote on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, board members, for that input. The next item that we'd like to present also is an initiative, a cost-saving initiative that we've been kind of working on behind the scenes with respect to district-wide landscaping. We have obtained a copy of a bid, RFP 10-02022JC, for district-wide landscaping that has very favorable rates and also based on square footage of the property. I've copied for you the technical specifications of the bid into my slide, ranging from 3.1 all the way to 3.12, which includes the mowing, the edging, the trimming, pruning, cleaning the property, litter and debris removal, etc. Based on a comparison of our current vendor versus the vendor that we'll be looking to apply the same terms and conditions on in that RFP, immediately we can see we'll be saving over $100,000 between those three locations of the administrative building, Palm City and Jensen Beach. On the side where you see my various bullets there, we would be recommending at a regularly scheduled board meeting that the board approve the superintendent to exercise the authority contained within that RFP for those rates, with the understanding that subsequently through attrition of staff, that we could phase in other locations as it is fiscally feasible to do so. As an example, we've been working with the maintenance department, and we do know that we have a retirement from the quote-unquote lawn cutting crew coming up in June, another one in December, and potentially another one lost to a plant operator position. So we would tally up those numbers, see what that savings looks like, and we've actually started to reach out to maintenance for the director to tell us where would be a seamless transition for us to be able to phase in that lawn mowing RFP, allow us to, I don't want to use the word piggyback, but use the same terms and conditions of that RFP. So this is more informational for the board to let you know that at a subsequent board meeting, we will be bringing this forward so you can understand what we're trying to accomplish here. Any questions on that one?
If I could add something.
Sure, please go ahead.
So if I could add one thing on this, this particular contract that we're proposing, the most beneficial part of it is they mow when there's no students at our schools. And it's based on unitized pricing, $31 per acre.
Oops, go ahead.
Who's the vendor? And have we put this out to our local vendors in the community? I mean, that's one of our goals, is to utilize
The vendor's Brightview.
I'm sorry?
Brightview is the vendor. They have local offices here. They're not small, though.
Thank you.
And my final slide for today is just an update, as we discussed earlier, that we did take, the superintendent did exercise his emergency authority to avoid a $92,000 cost increase for the purchase of Chromebooks. So we invoked language that was contained within our current policy of 6320 to avoid paying that additional $92,000. At this point, Madam Chair, Board Member, Superintendent, I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Seacrest and Dr. Miller as they will be discussing some capital changes to the 5-year capital plan that you'll be seeing coming forward. Mr. Seacrest?
Can I ask Mr. Morrison a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So I saw this agenda piece of these potential changes to the plan, but I think we also, at some point, are going to need what the overall change to the 5 years looks like,
Yes.
you know, in that normal spreadsheet that we get.
We have been working feverishly behind the scenes to make those changes and updates to the plan. I think we're just about done, so we will be bringing that forward probably at the next workshop in June.
Right, because I think the community kind of looks at that to see what's in year 2, what's in year 3, et cetera. As we adjust those things, I think we owe it to be
Absolutely.
transparent and show exactly what that looks like. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, that will be coming forward, Mrs. Roberts.
So good afternoon, Madam Chair, school board members, Superintendent Maine, Mark Sechrist, Director of Facilities. I'm going to bring your attention some of the projects we've been going over. There's actually 3 major projects in the next couple slides. Some exciting news. We're looking at moving students from Perkins and Old Salerno to Port Salerno Elementary and Warfield. So it would be pre-K classrooms, we would move them to Warfield, and then we would actually move them to Port Salerno, and we would no longer use Perkins and Old Salerno Schoolhouse starting the school year of August. That is one of our proposals. The reason we're bringing this forward is we're transferring some existing funds that were in the 5-year capital plan, the 1.3 million, to do this in case things come up as we make this move. And then there's something down the road that we're looking at as we have more developments come in Indiantown and in those surrounding areas. We may eventually in the 26-27 school year have to move some portables into Warfield, but we will have to do that as determined, and I would have to bring that forward at a later time. But so we would generally lock these funds into this current project, this current new project, and I can take discussions on that now, or I can go through the next 2 projects, and then I can take overall discussion. So it's at your pleasure.
So I fully support moving, vacating Perkins and Old Salerno Schoolhouse. I think that there are more issues than just those sites being separate. There's some cost savings that can happen. In regard to the moving portables to Warfield, I know, I know that they're preparing sites now for some new homes in Indiantown. So is there a projection on the number of students that will be coming by year and phase of that project? Because the other thing is converting Indiantown Middle School, which is at like 50% capacity,
Correct.
to a K-8 model so that we can move some of the students without expending a ton of money in our capital budget to build and increase the size of Warfield. We can move some of those students to Indiantown Middle in that K-8 model.
Yes, and I think we're going to have to look at the survey data and basically the attendance going into August and then start making those projections. Because currently, even though the county is building everywhere, there's no students following those developments. So it's really hard to predict right now. But I think once you take the attendance in August and then you take the attendance in October, that'll give us a pretty good indicator of if we're actually, going over capacity at Warfield. We do have existing portables that we could move from other schools into Warfield if that comes about. Or we can do, like you said, look at IMS and see what to do with building number 2. Since we left 5th grade, go to Warfield, that building is kind of empty right at the moment.
I agree. I 100% support this. I feel like it's going to bring a cohesion, have everybody under one roof, and I fully support it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move to the next project. So this is an exciting project right now. We currently have the RFQ out for the A&E. It is due on May 8th. We're projecting to bring the recommendation of the department and purchasing to your agenda probably on the June 17th to hire that A&E firm. Following that will be the CM at Risk. So that's going to be coming out shortly. And then we will have the 2 entities we need to start that project. And once we start that project and we get board approval, then it starts a timeline. But it's anywhere from 9 months to design and get to the construction documents and GMP phase. So once we get that board approval, it will start that timeline. I can give you updates as we proceed, like I do every month. But that's some exciting news right now. The RFQ's out. We've already did the site visit with the A&E. And like I said, the RFQ is due on the 8th of May at 2 o'clock. But the reason we have this slide on here is once we added buildings 9, 10, and 18, it almost doubled the budget of what we originally had on the capital plan. So the reason we brought it forward was we're going to transition some of the funds we had on different projects to make up the difference, because now like I said, we've almost doubled the funding side of this project in order to include those 3 buildings and those capacities in those buildings. But that's why we're bringing it forward right now. But essentially, it'd be one big project. It would be similar to Stewart Middle School, where we actually build the new buildings and the new admin and media center. And then once they're occupiable, we can move the students into those areas and the staff, and then the demo of the existing buildings would come down. So there would be little disruption, just like Stewart Mill. You would have an active campus while the new buildings. And then at the same time, we're actually doing this at Stewart Middle also. We're going to renovate the existing gym. So that gym's almost the same age as Stewart Middle. So we had previous board approval on renovating the gym, so it'll be all one big project. And then we'll just have to phase in the gym renovation based on probably Christmas and summer vacation. Do you want me to go to the next slide, or you have questions on Murray
I have
Middle?
a question. So of this project cost, I know that were we able to recoup some of this expense due to the hurricane damage or the tornado damage?
So I
at
know
Murray?
staff is working with RIS to come up with a number, but right now the insurance company has not really given us a hard number yet. But any number that we can get from them, we're going to recoup the cost that you see here.
So this will be the total cost of 32 million minus whatever we recoup from the
Yeah.
insurance company. Okay.
Right.
Or 34 million, sorry.
So whatever we can, at some point in time, which will be probably in the future, we'll get that number from them, and then we can basically refund what we've paid, what we're estimating on this project now. But our goal is to, since the RFQ is happening now, we wanted to get this project funded, because once you guys approve the RFQ, we got to have the funds in place to do that project. So the next project is Warfield Elementary. So while I was researching Murray Middle, trying to get that RFQ together, it dawned on me that that budgetary number was set almost 5 years ago, and it was at $17 million originally. So to give you a little background history, we're in the process of, well, we just completed the Stewart Middle School Admin Media Center. That building alone cost $17 million. So Warfield was Admin Media Center plus 12 classrooms, which are in the current admin building now. So we still have to provide for 12 new classrooms in a separate building. So that's what doubled the size of this project, is actually inflation over the last 4 years. And that's why you see the difference in cost. But it's based on real numbers that we've had on current projects.
So I'm just wondering if there is a need for 12 new classrooms, if we're going to do a conversion of Indiantown Middle, which has such a low capacity, is there a need to add all this more classroom space at Warfield if we're going to be able to make that shift? Or, 'cause
So-
we've talked about the K-8, and I don't know if that's something the board is still interested in doing, but it seems to not be cost effective to have a school sitting in such close proximity at half capacity and then spending $17 million more for 12.
So to clarify the information, we're not actually adding 12 new classrooms. The classrooms currently are now in the building, their admin building, and they're being used. So with the move of fifth grade in their current classroom capacities, they're using those 12 classrooms currently. So we're actually, because that building's coming down, we have to rebuild, but not add more student stations.
Okay, so they're not actually new classrooms, they're
Replacement.
replacing what's okay.
Yeah.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? So I'll go to the last slide because I wanted to give you some updates. We have some exciting news on the pool. So the PO was released on the non-electrical items yesterday. The contractor's actually scheduling that work, which puts us anywhere from 14 to 20 days ahead of the June schedule. So they're going to start that non-electrical work in May, so that's some exciting news, because originally we projected June and July, so we're hoping we can pick up some schedule. I will let you know that the economy and the market is creating issues with the electrical items. They have done what work they can, and they have all the equipment on order, and it will be installed when they get it. So I'll keep you posted if we have any delays, but currently, it will help having this non-electrical project start early, and hopefully we can get ahead of our schedule.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I be recognized for a moment?
Of course.
Thank you. I did have an opportunity to go back and look at the financials, particularly for the sales tax, and Mrs. Board Members Roberts is correct that we do have about $896,000 in the plans for the cafeterias. So I just wanted to go on record that we did check that, and that is correct. Those projects have not been done yet, which is why it wasn't really ringing a bell, but there are funds there allocated for those projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any more questions? Carter, I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If we are going to up our millage from the 425 to what you've recommended, do we have to give direction on that?
Yes, that will come before you, yes, you'll have to give the superintendent and the superintendent some direction on that, but that will come before you, probably around the time of the tentative budget. But we'll be having discussions in workshop, as Board Member Roberts wanted to obviously see some more information where the board might want to make some adjustments to what we're currently funding out of those proceeds. So at that point, we can do like a work session and we can see what the board would like to eliminate or where we want to go with that. And then that will ultimately flush out, because I do have a working spreadsheet that will flush out exactly what the millage rate would be based on the board's direction.
And that would be publicized? The community would know that they are going to get a tax increase?
Yes, that would be totally transparent and above board if we were to move from the .425 to some other millage, if we were to do that.
Because I'm going to throw a zinger out there, if you don't mind. I feel that our teachers are going to want to know why we can't just make it the .5 and give them more money. And I want to get ahead of it.
And
It's going to affect
And
our
if,
true.
if I may, I think that we have an agreement with them as to exactly how much that stipend amount is. So that's an agreement that was negotiated with both bargaining units as to what the stipend piece looks like. So isn't that correct?
Well,
Yes, we do have an agreement.
in
We
a-
do have MOUs with both bargaining units. Yes, ma'am.
I was told today that they might not be able to get a true-up and that this would alleviate that. Am I saying it the right way?
Well,
That-
it depends upon the population shifts, and again, it depends upon the board's direction, but I will bring forward to you preliminary numbers for you to look at. So
Okay.
you can make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
But Mr. Board Member Roberts is correct. We do have MOUs with both bargaining units.
Well, and maybe the union would like to start negotiating with us now so that we can work out some of the details until we get the numbers. So we're only talking salary come August, and they don't have to wait so long to get their money. So maybe we could start bargaining now for any policy issues that either side wants to bring up. So maybe, Madam Chair, if you and the superintendent want to reach out to the union and
Okay.
suggest that we start that process now so that they can maybe even get paid, start the year off with us, an increase depending on where we are budget-wise.
Okay, I just kind of,
Sure.
in my head, thinking it's going to be at 4.8, why not just even it out and use the money the way it's intended to be used?
Okay. That
Thank
would-
you. I
thank you.
appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You know, the .50, right?
At the .5.
Right, which we've been at before.
We've been at that
yeah.
before, but right now, we're at .425, and we
Right.
would be raising it to pay the additional money for the sheriff.
Right,
Why not just make it .5,
right.
which we're allowed to do?
Which we're allowed to do, and
Yes.
we've been at before, so
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
like it's that radical, so.
No,
yeah, yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there for conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Okay, we are eliminating 5.01 school board budget, and we are moving to a discussion on 5.02 Boys and Girls Club. I met with Superintendent Maine and our attorney, and I am going to defer to Superintendent Maine, who's going to explain the process, because he also spoke to Mike Mortel, the city manager, because there are several components to this, and I want everyone to be aware of all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So as Board Chair Pritchett explained, we did have an opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with Terry Harmon, our attorney, one of our counsel, and he explained that there is in fact a path forward. However, I do want to iterate to the board that he is not in favor of the path forward, but did preface that there is a path forward. There's a couple of hurdles that you will all initially be able to have to get over or agree to in order to move to the MOU, which is where the conversation with Mr. Mortel came into place. You'll first have to agree to change policy because it is a Neola policy and it is statute. So while you can change your policy, it would be going against statute, but you do have the ability to change policy. If you overcome that hurdle of changing policy, you then would have to agree to update the lease agreement with the Boys and Girls Club. If you agree to change policy and if you agree to update the lease agreement with the Boys and Girls Club, then your last hurdle, and it really is not your hurdle, it would be the hurdle of the Boys and Girls Club, would be to Mike Mortel. Mr. Mortel would craft an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the city to allow the Boys and Girls Club as a 501c3 to serve alcohol on campus, provided you changed policy and you updated the lease agreement. The Memorandum of Understanding would allow the Boys and Girls Club to bypass a city ordinance that is currently in effect where alcohol cannot be served within 500 feet of a school building. They currently have MOUs in place now with some vendors and business establishments around that area, including a couple of churches that are within 500 feet of the building. So it has been done with the 501c3s in that area. However, and business establishments. However, I will also let you know that Mr. Harmon, as one of our counsel, one of our lawyers, is very concerned with the board moving forward with this because it does open a can of worms, as we know, and you've talked about. Where does it stop? How many 501c3s will now ask if many of our PTAs are 501c3s? Do our PTAs now want to serve alcohol on school campuses as a 501c3 using this route forward for fundraising purposes? And so that's if there's anything else to add, Mrs. Pritchett, I do believe that that's where.
No,
Mr.
I think you covered everything. The only conversation that I wasn't a part of was when you spoke to the city manager, but you explained to me what his parameters were as well. So I'd like to open it up to discussion.
Do we have people here from the Boys and Girls Club that we could hear from, maybe? Can we hear from them,
Sure,
Madam Chair?
sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent, and distinguished board. This I'm hearing for the first time about a legal opinion that says that policy is required, because my understanding is Sarasota did it without a policy change. They did it through, in their case, a First Amendment, in our case, a Second Amendment to lease. As you know, the lease has already been amended one time. that conferred on the Boys and Girls Club additional rights. Something else that I think is important to understand is how vital and how important it is for the Boys and Girls Club to be able to effectively fundraise in 2025, given some of the drawdowns and elimination of grants that we were previously entitled to receive. As most of you probably know, raising money for bricks and mortar is far more difficult than raising money for operations. We've raised the money, we've built the building, but the building has a very high cost of maintenance. And also right now, we're serving thousands of Martin County students. And we have tried and have succeeded in years past of serving more and more every year. So our inability to effectively fundraise for private philanthropy would be devastating to the Boys and Girls Club. And as you probably know, that most of the major fundraising does have alcohol associated with it. And I'm not going to say that that's an absolute necessity, but I am going to say that it's very hard to compete with those that do have the ability to serve alcohol if we did not have that ability. And as I said, the research that I've done and what I've read before, what I've heard today, was that it was done 8 years ago in Sarasota, and there's nothing that I'm aware of that would be different in this board granting a second amendment to the lease.
Did Mr. Harmon speak to that Sarasota lease at all?
He did, and I have asked Mr. Harmon to put in writing for the board. When Mrs. Pritchett and I spoke to him, we have not received that yet, but we do. He did mention the Sarasota case. He does believe that there are differences. My memory is serving me this afternoon. He did mention that based on his opinion, there were noticeable differences in what the Boys and Girls Club is trying to accomplish versus the vendor or the organization in which that agreement was gone into in Sarasota. And I also just want to remind you that the reason that they would need to change policy is because they can't go against their own policy, which is currently in effect that alcohol will not be served on any of our school district properties, and you know this. But so they would have to first change that policy to allow for that to be the case.
I'd be very happy to review anything that you receive on the subject, and will do my own legal research to ascertain the necessity for a change in policy. And the situation in Sarasota, again, from what I know, is substantially similar to ours. I mean, we have, as they do, a substantial investment, $17 million. We have a First Amendment to the lease, which granted us additional bundle of rights than what was contained in the initial lease. So I'd like to see any contrary point of view, because that's at odds with what I've been told and what I've reviewed myself through today's date.
I just make a statement here. So, I mean, I thank you for being here. If you want to state your name for the record, probably we need that too, Mr. Bobko.
My name is Noel Bobko.
Okay, great, thanks. The Boys and Girls Club is a tremendous community partner of the school district and of this county. And obviously I can hear the frustration in Mr. Bobko's voice that this would greatly hinder their fundraising efforts. So I just want to speak out in support of the Boys and Girls Club. And for this allowance, I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. Obviously, students are not present at this time. It does make a big deal in fundraising. As someone who's very involved in the nonprofit world, I personally am not really a drinker, so it doesn't affect me. I don't partake in that at an event, but I know it makes a huge impact on fundraising. So I would personally like to see us pursue this for them. I definitely hear the apprehension in this board, but I just wanted to state that that's where I'm at. Thank you.
So I do, I think that we're really going to have to really decide as a board the precedent that we're going to set, because it is precedent setting to, if we allow one 501c3, what does that mean and what does that look like in the future? So I'll withhold my opinion about it until we hear from Terry Harmon, and you all have an opportunity to review that, what he comes back to us with, and then you can review it. And I think between the board chair and something needs to come forward.
And I do think on the issue of precedent, if I may, I'm not sure that there are any other 501c3s that have built $17 million buildings on school district property. And I know standing alone, yeah, that's one distinction, but after I have a chance to review what your other council has had to say, I can address the matter more thoroughly.
Well, we have the Arts Council here, and they're going to be right next door, and they're going to want the same thing, I'm sure. So that's going to be another issue that we're going to have to bring forward as well.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The other thing that I'll make sure that we bring forward as well, that I didn't mention, that I want to make sure is on the record, is the liability insurance piece. So we certify to our liability insurance adjuster that we do not serve alcohol on any of our campuses, nor do we allow tobacco products or vaping. We would have to bring forward an updated quote, because that would cost an additional, our liability insurance quote will go up if we certify that we are allowing alcohol to be served on any one of our properties. That's a change. And so I would like the board to be able to have that updated amount and how much that additional cost would be that we would incur as a school district in order to do that.
If I may, as we have in the past, if your risk management has any additional language that they would like to have in the Second Amendment, to my knowledge, we've made every change that risk management has suggested, and we would certainly do so in the future. So I think those are issues that probably can be ironed out. If you could just tell us what language you need to satisfy risk management, we're happy to make those changes in the lease as we did before.
We'll have to bring this up again after we get something from Terry Harmon. All right?
Yes, thank you.
Just a quick remark, board members. Ike Crumpler, for the record. I'm a representative of the Boys and Girls Club. We thank you for the opportunity, and particularly the chair, to bring this conversation to the public sphere. It's one we've been working on having going back almost 9 months ago. Yeah. So the chance to have it here and work through the details is something that's greatly appreciated. We don't want to get away from the fact that we deeply share your concerns for the well-being of the children. We basically serve the same constituents as the #1 and #2 largest youth services provider in the county. We couldn't be more attentive to exactly where your concern is that you're coming from. So thank you for taking the time to go through this, and we look forward to a continued conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Open to the board. Ms. Russell?
I want to say Happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all of our teachers. We do greatly appreciate you and value what you do each day.
Brian? No? No? Okay. This meeting is adjourned.